systemic oppression a little bit, because I know that was kind of a topic that, some people were saying like, well, I'm not racist. My parent didn't teach me to be racist. And we were trying, I think the point of they were trying to get you to understand that it wasn't like an individual household thing, or it was like systems that have been built since the 1600s to advantage one group and disadvantage another. And I'm going to show you several. I'm going to start off one from the 1800s. One of the people that I read a lot is Frederick Douglass. Started off as a slave. He went from a slave to sitting next to Abraham Lincoln as one of his best friends and advisors. He freed himself from slavery. Just to let you know, and I finished with this. I read this book probably 3 or 4 times. There were back in those days, there were whites who were totally against slavery, because when he escaped, there was 2 families, one last name Johnson and Ruggles, who took him in for a week and helped him hide him and his wife for a week before he ended up in New Bedford, where he ended up at. But I'm going to show you a story that was from his book. It's called The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. Okay, there's a picture of Frederick. This was a conversation from his book. Now, what happened was, I'm going to explain what happened. Frederick was sold to a new slave owner, and he said, I was really happy to be going to the slave owner, because when I walked to the door, he said, this was the first time in my life that I'd ever seen a white person actually smile at me. He said the wife and the husband were standing at the door smiling at me. And he said that was so happy, because all the other ones he knew were so mean to him and whipping him and all that kind of stuff. He said, so the slave owner's wife, the new slave owner, she felt like slaves should be taught how to read, how to write, how to do math. But for those of you who don't know, in the 1800s, there were laws it was illegal to teach a slave to read or write or anything like that. You could go to jail for that back then. So you got to think, if blacks were brought to America in the 1600s, this is in the 1800s, there were laws, that's like 200 years where you weren't allowed to even teach blacks to read. So you can just think about that right now, how that's crippling one group. One group's allowed to learn and the other one's not. So here's a conversation. What happened was, she was teaching Frederick one day at home how to do ABCs and how to write, and the husband comes home and he says, what the heck are you doing? And these are just some of the quotes he says. It is unlawful to teach slaves. A black should know nothing but to obey. Learning would spoil the best of blacks in this world. So this is an actual story he wrote. Frederick wrote this. This is made up. This is in his book. He was like 10 or 12 years old when this happened. So I have a couple of questions here for you guys. What was the whole issue here in this situation?